Here we go again. This anime starts on a morning. Miners were digging when suddenly a strong earthquake hits. Everyone runs away immediately because it's dangerous, but unlike the others, a woman runs the other way. People dodge debris and one man gets trapped under some logs, dropping his money bag. A worker tries to steal it. However, the man stops him by grabbing his wrist. Seeing him resist, the thief smiles, grabs a pickaxe, and is about to kill the poor man. Just then, the woman arrives and saves him by incinerating the thief. The man on the ground screams in terror, calling her a witch. Yes, incredibly ungrateful. In a sudden scene change, the woman is about to be sentenced to hang. The townspeople watch expectantly, some throwing stones demanding her death. Nobles observe this. One asks about the prince who is supposed to give the sentence, but a soldier named Carter ignores him. Now we move inside a house where we meet Barop, the prince's servant. He encounters Tyr, a maid who just left the prince's room. Barop asks about him and she replies that he is still sleeping. Despite this, Barop knocks and enters the room, finding a scene that explains what happened. He approaches the prince to wake him up, and unexpectedly, the prince, who is our protagonist, wakes up confused and asks where he is. Barop tells him he must execute a witch, and the whole town awaits his sentence. This seems absurd to the prince, who even thinks it's a dream. Trying to remember, he asks if his name is Barop, which the old man confirms. The prince notices Barop looking at him in disbelief, so he decides to observe before acting. As they are about to leave, the prince stops and looks at a cup lying on the floor, which strikes him as odd. Meanwhile, in the town square, people anxiously await the prince's arrival. At that moment, the door opens, and our protagonist steps out with Barop. Seeing him, the noble from before makes a disgusted face, but the townspeople cheer for him, including Tyr, who is stunned to see him there. Our protagonist, meanwhile, looks at the witch but finds it ridiculous, feigning sleepiness and postponing the trial indefinitely. Carter and Barop try to stop him, warning that if he spares her, more witches might come. This seems perfect to our protagonist, as that way they could eliminate them all at once. With nothing more to say, he leaves, leaving the townspeople and nobles bewildered. In a scene change, our protagonist is in his carriage heading home. Looking out the window, he notices how people regard him with indifference. After a short ride, they arrive at his residence. He locks himself in his room and finally sighs in relief. After seeing all this, he concludes he's in a different world with the body of a prince that no one trusts, in an insignificant territory and an uncivilized society, a dark and ignorant era. On the wall of his room, he discovers a painting with different names, and one catches his attention. He stands in front of the mirror, realizing he has reincarnated, and assumes he must adapt and take the place of Roland Wimbledon. Then, in a panel change, we see him devouring the food served to him when Barop arrives, asking if he called him. The protagonist replies yes and invites him to sit. As he sees him eat, Barop informs him they received a report of witch sightings in the West Forest, and they found a coin there. The old man shows it, describing it as the emblem of the Witches' Brotherhood. Roland asks what that is, and Barop reveals it's an organization of witches that gathers to seek the sacred mountain, rumored to grant eternal peace, a promise used by the Brotherhood to lure girls into becoming witches. He even asks if he remembers the disappearance of newborns, as they are said to be responsible. Roland asks if he's worried about them coming to rescue the witch, and Barop confirms it, sure they won't let a corrupted companion escape. Intrigued, the protagonist asks what kind of power he means and how they managed to capture her. Barop tells him it happened a few days ago during a collapse in a northern mine. Again, Roland asks what kind of witchcraft she used. Barop reveals she unleashed dark flames from her hands and burned a person to death, which is why he thinks they should get rid of her quickly. Our protagonist ignores this suggestion and asks to be taken to her. Barop tries to stop him, but Roland changes the subject and asks why they decided to use the gallows on this witch instead of a pyre. Barop assumes it's because she isn't afraid of fire. In a panel change, Roland is seen descending to the dungeon where the witch is held. Carter tries to make him reconsider, but our protagonist ignores his warnings and asks to be guided to her. After a brief walk, they reach the witch's cell, one of the guards opens the bars, and our protagonist enters. Carter steps in front to protect him, but his fear is palpable. At that moment, the witch lifts her head and stands up. Immediately, Carter draws his sword ready to attack, but our protagonist calms him. He approaches the witch and asks for her name, introducing himself as the lord of the border town. Yes, our protagonist is quite the gentleman. The witch reveals her name is Anna. Roland asks her what happened that day in the mine. Anna tells him her father was a miner working in that mine when the collapse happened. He was trapped by a rock crushing his leg, and with him was another miner who tried to steal his life savings. Her father fought with all his strength to stop him, and when he finally found him, he saw the miner raising his pick to end his life, so he had no choice but to kill him. After hearing her story, Roland asks how she was arrested. The witch trembles as she answers that she was framed. Roland wants to know who did it, but she doesn't respond. Barap approaches our protagonist and reveals that it was her own father who framed her. This shocks Roland, but Barap comments that he probably did it for the reward, since anyone who discovers and reports a witch gets 25 gold dragons, a sum that, for someone with a broken leg, is like a life insurance. Setting that aside, Roland asks if the other miner was an adult, because if so, he wants to know how she dealt with him. Anna confesses she did it with that power they call the Devil's Power. Upon hearing this, the guards and Carter go on high alert, but Roland remains unfazed and asks her to show him. Carter and Barap question this decision, reminding him that the Stone of Divine Punishment is holding her back, and if she releases it, the consequences would be unimaginable. The witch even warns our protagonist that his own curiosity could get him killed. Roland ignores this and tells her that if she were an evil demon, she shouldn't kill him, but her father. Anna shakes her head and starts to cry. Roland grows tired of waiting, so he approaches her and asks again to show her power, so he can know if she's worthy of his compassion or just a vile demon who knows how to pretend. With that, he reaches for the necklace she wears. Carter tries to stop him, but in the struggle, the necklace breaks and the witch unleashes all her power. Immediately, Carter grabs Roland to take him to safety, but he refuses to move, pointing out the fire and how it doesn't spread. Seeing this, he realizes she's controlling it carefully not to harm them. They stand for a few seconds watching the iron bars melt in the intense fire. Roland doesn't take his eyes off the woman, and when the fire finally subsides, Anna asks if he'll kill her now that his curiosity is satisfied. Roland doesn't say a word. He approaches her and covers her with his cloak, then answers, no, he actually wants to hire her. That's right, he came in as a prisoner and left with a job. What a great government. Now we switch scenes. Roland is in his room writing on a paper everything he knows about the laws of thermodynamics. After a brief analysis, he concludes that Anna's power is perfect for what he's about to do. Just then, Barap knocks on the door. Roland asks him to come in and inquires about the matter he assigned him. Barap confirms he has arranged the witch's sentencing, so no one noticed anything. Satisfied with this, Roland asks him to draft a report summarizing everything that has happened in the last decade in Border Town, including trade, taxes, and expenses, as well as the city's workshops like blacksmithing, textiles, and ceramics. Barap is surprised to hear this, even asking why he wants to know everything. Does he plan to take the fight for the throne seriously? Roland looks somewhat confused by this last remark, so he approaches the map hanging on the wall. There he sees how each of his brothers governs a sector of the kingdom. Goron, the military stronghold, Garcia, the trade port, Tefeco, the economic center, Tilly, the cultural center, and finally, he governs the border town. Taking this into account, he asks Varap the chances of winning. The elder sadly replies that the other prince's fiefs have the advantage, so it's tough to achieve anything. Moreover, given his performance so far and his reputation among the nobles, he doubts they have much chance. Roland agrees but decides to focus on impressing his father in another way. Before continuing the conversation, he asks if Varap knows who governs that country. Varap replies that the royal family from the Grey Castle governs, but Roland denies this, claiming it's just a facade, as the real power lies in the holy city of Hermes. In short, the church. That's why he plans to create a kingdom free from the church's influence. Then, the throne will belong solely to him. He even asks if Barap dislikes the church's interference. Barap admits he's right, but the church is deeply rooted and has the people's support. Roland clarifies that the people support it only because they believe its lies, which is why they will prove it wrong. And the first lie is about witches, that they are the embodiment of evil. But he incredulously asks if that was the reason he saved the witch. Roland confirms it and promises that if he wins the fight for the throne, Baruch will no longer be a mere servant but his right hand. But for that, he needs him not to question his decisions. After this conversation, Barap leaves the room and encounters Carter in the hallway. Carter asks what they talked about, but Barap avoids answering, only saying that the prince doesn't seem the same. Now we switch to the witch, who is sitting in the garden, somewhat pensive. We learn that after her magic demonstration, Barap went to her room to explain her work contract in detail, though she still doesn't know what she'll do. Just then, Roland appears, and our protagonist approaches her and greets her. Anna remains confused and asks why he does all this for her. Roland just smiles and invites her for a walk. During the walk, Anna asks why he saved her if she killed someone. Roland reminds her that he did it to save his father, something anyone would have done. Still, Anna questions whether it's a good idea to forgive her since she's a witch. In response, Roland approaches a flower and picks it. He then hands it to Anna. When the witch has it in her hands, Roland reveals that it's poisonous. Immediately, Anna drops the flower, but then Roland clarifies that it's a lie. However, those words are enough to make her feel fear. Hearing this, Anna asks if the same applies to witches. Roland confirms it, also mentioning that their power is a product of nature, so it's not evil. Anna begins to cry, telling him she doesn't understand the magnitude of that demonic power capable of hurting everything around her, which is why she thinks the best option is to execute it. Roland grows tired and tells her that if she wants to die, she's free to do so, but that won't solve anything, and others will continue to think the same about witches. She can choose another path, one where they create a world where witches can live peacefully without fear. After saying this, he asks if she doesn't want to be like she was before. Anna tearfully replies that yes, she wants a normal life where she teaches children to read and write, just like her teacher Carl did. Roland tells her it will be possible if she joins him and they work together. In that case, Anna agrees and asks what she should do. In the afternoon, Roland takes her to a factory to train and learn to control her power. Over the next few days, Anna dedicates herself to her task. Meanwhile, Roland stays in his room reading and reviewing reports. One night, Tyr, the maid from the beginning, sends a letter via a messenger pigeon. The next morning, Roland meets with Warop and mentions he has reviewed the thief's records, discovering that the border town only excels in mining. However, something strange he noticed is that the income is almost non-existent, and all trade is with the Willow Town. Confused, he asks where the food comes from. Parope reveals that until last year, all the mineral produced in the border town was exchanged for grain at the Canto Largo fortress. Roland asks why this is the case, explaining that for Canto Largo, the border town is their property, so they only feed the workers enough to keep them working. Yes, total exploitation, but even before he arrived, Baron Boris, the former lord, always obeyed the fortress's orders and delivered all the mineral in exchange for a bit of food. This seems absurd to Roland, as he would have preferred to trade something, even if it was for their own benefit. At that moment, Barobel reveals that Boris and a few knights there own properties at Canto Largo, which is why they never cared to make the border town prosper. They simply delivered the mineral to cover the food rations, and of course, they received a share of the profits. They're all scoundrels. Roland knows they can't continue like this, so he orders the exchange to be eliminated. Baru asks where they will get the food. Roland replies that they will start real trade now, selling all the ore to Pueblo Sauce and then buying grain. Baru raises a concern that they might not want to buy it. In that case, Roland suggests selling it at half the market price to gain initial capital and gradually conquer the market. Barak asks what they will do with such a low price. Roland suggests selling it elsewhere. After all, they're at the source of the Red River, which runs through the country. Once they have a good fleet, they'll expand nationwide, and the Red River will be their Silk Route. Barop acknowledges the plan is good, but worries it might be seen as stealing from the fortress, and if so, they might not be allowed to stay there in winter. Roland questions why they should spend winter there. Barop reminds him it's due to the demon moon. Every year after the snowy spring, the gates of hell open in the Dragon Mountains, and the demonic power corrupts the forest animals, turning them into savage, bloodthirsty beasts that attack eastward, destroying everything. As a border town, they have no walls, so they must spend winter sheltered in Canto Largo. Roland immediately calls for Carter. In the royal hall, he has 3 survivors of the demon moon present. 2 are patrol leaders responsible for lighting the fire signals, and 1 is a hunter who faced and killed 2 of the beasts. Roland starts by asking about the signal procedure. The first man stutters, so he asks the second to speak. The second explains they patrol the southern slope of the Dragon Mountains, and if they detect beast tracks, they light the signals. Then, they take a boat back to the fortress. This catches Roland's attention, and he asks if the beasts don't attack them in the water. The soldier replies no, and he's never seen one cross it. With this in mind, Roland asks how long each demon moon lasts. The soldier answers it usually lasts 2 to 3 months, but the longest season was 2 years ago, lasting 4 months. During that event, many people died of malnutrition. This confuses Roland as they were supposed to be sheltered in Canto Largo. The soldier explains that the fortress only gave them food based on the ore they delivered, and if they ate moderately, the food barely lasted 3 months. So, in the last month, those bastards just watched them starve. They really are despicable. Roland listens intently, then turns to the hunter and asks what beasts he encountered. The hunter replies they were something like a wild boar and a wolf. He adds that the beasts are mutated animals, and depending on how fierce they were before mutating, they're harder to defeat. But he makes it clear those aren't the most terrifying, as there are hybrids, beasts as strong as lions, with eagle wings and a sense of smell that can track you no matter how well you hide. Roland assumes there aren't many of those. The hunter confirms, estimating about 3 per demon moon. However, he clarifies that those beasts can only fly at low heights. Otherwise, not even the walls would save them. After hearing all this, Roland asks his name. The hunter introduces himself as Steel Axe. What a name! Roland praises him for his bravery and, as a reward for the three, orders 10 silver coins to be given to them. After they leave, the protagonist asks Carter to accompany him. They both arrive at the signal lighting spot. The protagonist surveys the area and asks Carter the distance from there to the river. Carter estimates about 2,000 feet, then asks why he's inspecting the area. Is he planning to spend winter in Pueblo Fronterizo? Roland confirms it, promising to defend Pueblo Fronterizo and defeat the beasts. Carter asks how he plans to do that, and then Roland reveals he intends to build the largest wall humanity has ever seen. Now we switch to Barov working in the office. The Elder can't stop thinking about our protagonist and his drastic change. Not long ago, he was just a drunk who let him do all the work. He even confesses he regretted accepting the position, but now he feels different. Since saving the witch, he's shown great strategic thinking, managing to navigate his delicate situation and aiming directly for religious power. Intrigued about what will happen, he hopes our protagonist's plan to build a wall succeeds. Otherwise, all his work will be in vain. Just thinking about it, he wonders how that will be possible. Now we switch to him, who received the order to supervise the progress. Roland ordered them to go to the North Mountain mine and bring back limestone, which they would mix with clay evenly. After this, they'll send it to the baking room, where Anna will take care of the rest. We see the witch using her magic carefully. A few hours later, Anna comes out, Roland checks it, and seeing it's right, he tells Carter to find someone to crush the ore and mix it with plaster until it's powder. In the afternoon, they had the mixture ready. Carter asked what he was going to do. Roland just smiled and told Anna he would show her magic this time. Confused, Anna asked if he could also use magic. Roland replied yes, but his is called science. With that, he ordered Carter to mix the powder with water and pour it over the stones to fill the gaps. Carter, unsure, questioned if what he was thinking would work. Roland asked him to trust him and they'd see the results tomorrow. The next day, they returned to the site. Roland asked Carter to test its strength. Without hesitation, Carter approached the stones and struck them with a shovel, discovering they were too hard. Seeing this, he was impressed and assured Roland that they could build a wall around the village in 5 years and even reinforce the castle. In response, Roland mentioned he planned to build more things, like a home for all the villagers. Having said this, he tasked Anna with producing a batch each day and told Carter to finish the wall in 3 months. Before he left, Carter stopped him to ask the name of that miraculous alchemical powder. Roland thought for a moment and decided it would be called cement. Yes, that name sounds very familiar. Days passed and Roland arrived at the site where the wall was being built to supervise. However, he was unpleasantly surprised to find they had hardly made any progress and that what little they had done was poorly constructed. Carter took the blame, but Barack supported him, saying that this kind of work needed an experienced architect. With that, Roland ordered them to find a master mason as soon as possible. In a scene change, a man walked through the village, reminiscing about the moments he spent with Anna and the other girls. Among his memories, he recalls when one of his students burst into his office in tears, having just discovered she was also a witch, which shocked him. Suddenly, he is interrupted by a guy calling him from a distance, asking for help to read the announcement posted by the prince. The man approaches and finds they are recruiting for the wall, including a master mason. Seeing this, the man runs off. Barack informs Roland that they found a master mason, but to his surprise, he mentions it's the local schoolmaster. Our protagonist doesn't think much of it and orders them to introduce him, and soon they are face to face. The master introduces himself as Kalle van Beard and claims to have maintained the dikes of Grey Castle, designed and built palaces, and repaired public facilities. Hearing this, Barov mentions that the works at Grey Castle were managed by the Mason Guild, so he asks if he belongs to them. Kalle confirms it, then Roland remembers that while they were building the castle theater, there was a collapse, and the entire guild was declared guilty and executed. Kalle states that it's only a half-truth, as the administrator accepted bribes and ordered them to change the type of stone, which caused the accident. Of course, they warned many times that using that stone posed structural risks, but no one listened. After the accident, they explained the situation to the investigator, but when they interrogated the administrator, he justified himself by saying he was trying to save money with that change. In light of his statement, the authorities deemed him innocent, unlike the entire guild that was executed. However, when he learned what was happening, he escaped at night and hid his identity. Knowing this, Roland asks why he came forward. Colt confesses he has a reason for doing so, but for now, he can't say. After hearing all this, Roland asks Barat for his opinion, and he chooses to spare his life since they need labor. Thus, Roland grants him forgiveness and hires Kalle as the administrator. With no time to waste, he shows him the map and his construction plan. Kal, knowing they're trying to build a wall to stop the beasts, recommends lowering the height and width, suggesting making a trench that would be finished in a month and a half. However, he doubts they can complete the wall due to the short time they have to make the cut stones. Hearing this, Roland asks if they could finish it with enough stone. Caro replies yes, so Roland shows him his creation and takes him to the area where he experimented. Caro is amazed by the hardness and, with this in mind, claims they could finish it in 3 months. With nothing more to discuss, Roland assigns him the rest. Kahlo asks for a moment to discuss the matter he mentioned, but then Anna appears. When Kahlo sees her, he feels a great relief and confesses that he's been having nightmares this whole time. Grateful to our protagonist, he kneels before him. Roland tells him to get up and makes it clear that he doesn't see witches as embodiments of evil, so he won't join the witch hunt. Knowing this, the master decides to reveal the truth. Another witch has appeared, his student Nanawa. Upon hearing this, everyone present can't help but feel a bit scared. He knows that if this had happened elsewhere, there would be a bloody witch hunt, but with the prince involved, he's curious to see what will happen next. Roland, for his part, just smiles. Cal approaches to ask him to take Nanawa too. Realizing he misunderstood, Roland tries to clarify that he only saved Anna because he needed her. Again, he misinterprets this, promising that in the future, Nanawa will also be able to please him. Upon hearing this, Barab laughs, but Roland clarifies that Anna is responsible for making the cement he just saw. Cal is astonished to hear this, and then our protagonist asks him to bring Nawa with him. As he leaves, Varova warns that dealing with Nawa Pine won't be easy since she's the daughter of a noble. Roland decides Cal will accompany her in her classes. The next day, in the kitchen, the girl appears shy and distrustful, but everything changes when Anna arrives, whom Anawa hugs affectionately, gaining confidence. While eating, Roland asks her how she discovered her powers, and she reveals that while trying to heal an injured bird, a strange energy completely healed it. Intrigued, Roland orders injured animals to be brought in to test her ability. Nanawa manages to heal them, proving she can restore physical damage. Although she can't regenerate lost limbs or revive the dead, Roland decides she should practice without alerting her family. While Carter begins to understand his interest in witches, finally, facing the threat of the demon moon, Roland asserts they will survive, though he knows they face even greater dangers. One night, a woman with silver hair was watching the moonlight. Then, a man enters the room addressing her as Your Highness, and informs her that the Black Fleet has returned with a great haul after intercepting a convoy headed to Wolfheart. Upon hearing this, the woman asks for the name of the Black Fleet's captain. The man replies his name is Drake, yes, like the singer or the actor. The woman turns and orders him to grant the title of knight and deliver all the loot to the Black Fleet. The man thanks her on behalf of the fleet and changes the subject, informing her that the mission failed, as Prince Roland merely fell asleep after drinking the poisoned wine and soon woke up. Yes, it didn't affect him at all, but the woman grows tired of listening, ordering him to inform her that she will give him one last chance. She also requests that her sister's belongings be sent so she can act accordingly. Before the man leaves, the woman gives him one last order: execute the alchemist who made that poison. Now we shift to our protagonist's territory. A man arrives at the dock and watches the people work. Meanwhile, in the castle, our protagonist was reviewing some documents with Baroff. The latter informs him that the wall will be finished soon. Roland asks about the trade situation, and Baroff assures him everything is going well, stating that the food from Sauce Village has arrived in their territory, even pointing out the amount written in his report, guaranteeing it will be enough to last through winter. He adds that, after deducting expenses, they still have a small surplus, but even though they have commercial income, their fiscal deficit remains serious, so he doubts it will be sustainable in the long term. Basically, right now, they're not doing too badly. They have enough food for winter and even a little extra money, but the problem is they're still spending more than they earn, which will cause issues over time. Back to the story, we're told that even now, most expenses come from their treasury, so if they continue at this pace, they'll be lucky to last until spring. Roland reassures him, reminding him they still have the mineral trade, and if they manage to finish the wall and secure themselves there, production will be ensured. However, he clarifies that his concern is the fact that they've cut off the supply of Longstone, as Duke Ryan surely won't sit idly by. Just then, someone interrupts them, announcing that an emissary from Longstone has arrived. In response, Roland orders Baroff to send the servants to prepare a feast with the food from Sauce Village for their guest, because yes, the first conquest is through food. We then move to the table, where the servants fill the place with all kinds of dishes and desserts. The emissary is confused to see this, so Roland invites him to eat. The emissary, named Hermont, watches him pick up food with chopsticks and asks what they are, to which Roland introduces them as chopsticks. Yes, what an original name. He explains that since his subjects can't afford utensils, he devised these tools that are cheap and more hygienic, something he wishes all border towns would learn to use. He apologizes for not having more to eat. Hermont tells him not to worry, as even in Longstone they can't enjoy a feast like this often. Roland explains it's a welcome feast, something they don't have often, but since food arrived from Pueblo Sauce that day, he took advantage. Hermont is shocked to hear where it comes from, but Roland ignores this and invites him to eat, suggesting they discuss business afterward. After the meal, Hermont thanks His Highness for the hospitality, mentioning he's representing Canto Largo and that the mineral delivery date has passed. They prepared the food for shipping, but it won't happen since the mineral hasn't arrived. Roland mentions they recently had an accident. The northern mine collapsed, halting production, and they couldn't gather the agreed amount of minerals. Hermont then suggests delivering only 2 months' worth. Roland reminds him that 2 years ago many starved, and he won't let that happen again, so he decides to cancel the trade between the fortress and the border town. Hermont is surprised, especially when Roland mentions he sold the mineral to Pueblo Sauce, where they sell everything that can be bought with money, making that trade more beneficial for his people. Yes, our Roland is quite the businessman. After hearing His Highness, Hermont notes that Pueblo Sauce doesn't trade in minerals. Even if they pay with coins, it won't be much and would be a loss. Canto Largo has been operating in the West for over a century, surpassing Pueblo Sauce in development and market size. That's why, in the long run, it's better for the fortress to be their only trading partner. Hermont offers to buy the mineral at 30% below market price, a deal that would benefit both sides, impressing everyone with his trading skills. Roland asks if what he just said would guarantee the fortress family's agreement. Hermont replies he's not sure, but since he manages foreign trade, he'll do what he can to convince the families. With that, Roland agrees, and Hermont prepares to leave, warning that traveling to Pueblo Sauce could be dangerous with winter 2 months away, suggesting Roland consider Duke Ryan's perspective and be cautious. In response, our protagonist states they won't go to Pueblo Sauce or Canto Largo, but will build a wall for defense, wanting to be the new frontier of the Grey Castle Kingdom. Edmund, surprised, reminds him that His Highness's decision will affect all border towns. If something goes wrong, his people won't be able to flee. Roland thanks him for his concern, and Hermont leaves. Yes, our protagonist is taking a big risk. If his plan fails, everything will end badly. After this meeting, Roland tells Varrock to prepare the food as planned. Meanwhile, Hermont arrives in his town, telling them everything he discussed with Roland, that they are building a wall and he will lead his subjects to defeat the beasts and turn the border town into the new frontier of the Grey Castle Kingdom. Yes, our protagonist aspires to be much more than just a simple town. Upon hearing this, one of the officials stands up and criticizes Roland's actions, calling them childish. The other nobles laugh, saying it's only a matter of time before that foolish prince comes to them begging for mercy. At that moment, the Duke begins to speak, calling Boris and asking if he knows anything about the wall. Boris explains that a few days ago, Prince Roland was recruiting stonemasons and laborers. However, he thought they were for garden work or something, not for the wall. After hearing this, the Duke asks Armont if he saw the wall. He replies that he did. Before leaving the border town, he went to check it out, discovering they were building it near the Mist Forest, though he doesn't know what methods they are using since they are progressing too quickly, but doubts it will withstand the demon beasts. In response, the Duke asks for his opinion. Meanwhile, as the meeting happens, Roland has called the entire town for an important announcement. He revealed the meeting he had with the emissary from the Gando Largo fortress, where they demanded the mineral delivery. He explains that he tried to mediate by explaining their current production situation and asked for provisions to get through the winter, but the emissary refused, so they won't receive food like they did during the Demon Moon 2 years ago. And yes, as expected, the people become worried. Roland also states that recently the astrologers from the Grey Castle warned him that this winter will be longer. It may last over 4 months, meaning if they let things remain the same, the tragedy from 2 years ago will repeat and be even worse. Therefore, he asks them to remember all their loved ones who perished back then. Returning to the nobles' meeting, Hermon suggests he believes the prince is building the wall for commercial purposes, likely aiming to force them to trade with coins. But since he's the prince, he suggests it's better not to conflict with the royal family. He explains that if they accept and buy the mineral at 30% below market price, it would still be profitable, and it would also benefit them to have someone defend the border town, saving costs to fight the beasts. Plus, they could cultivate the vast lands between the fortress and the town. He also mentions that since the struggle for the throne lasts 5 years, Prince Roland won't sit idle, so after that period the border town will be more prosperous, and its inhabitants will remain his subjects. By then, he, the Duke, would own the largest territory in the kingdom, so he suggests buying the mineral and sending people for the wall's construction. And yes, the other meeting members laugh and call him naive, while the Duke acknowledges it's a good idea but makes it clear that this is a merchant's mindset, as they only see profits and losses. Standing up, he states he hasn't come this far thinking only of profits, questioning why he should negotiate with someone he can't control. After all, those who disobey face punishment. Besides, he doesn't care whether the border town prospers or not. After all, it's his, so no one can take charge, and the prince is no exception. The protagonist presents the supplies he gathered, assuring everyone they'll last through the winter. Finally, good news, and the past tragedy won't repeat. The people are grateful, but their joy fades when he reveals they are now enemies of the Long Song, so they'll have to stay and endure. To survive, he orders a wall to be built and calls on those who can fight, offering pay and protection for their families. He gives them a clear choice: starve or defend their home. Not much of a choice, really. Then, with Anna and Nanawa, he conducts an experiment with a candle, showing that different gases exist and that curiosity is key to progress. Later, he asks for materials for another experiment, but when he finally tries to relax, a woman appears behind him and puts a sword to his neck, telling him not to move. That night, Anna was watching the moon from her window. As she lay down in bed, Roland knocks on her door asking to talk. Immediately, Anna gets up and opens the door, asking what's wrong, and yes, now I'll give you the context. We travel several minutes back in time, exactly to the moment the mysterious woman appeared. With her dagger at our protagonist's neck, she asked him not to panic, promising not to harm him. Once freed, Roland asks her who she is. He notices she has the same symbol as the coin and asks if she's a witch. The woman is surprised to hear this, recognizing that he's quite informed, so she introduces herself as Nightingale. Roland demands to know the reason for her visit, but the witch thanks him on behalf of the sisterhood for helping Anna and Nanawa. She adds that she came to rescue them after hearing they were captured as witches, but surprisingly, she found out they were both fine, even better than any other witch. Hearing this, Roland asks if she just said she's been infiltrated for a week. Before continuing the conversation, Nightingale asks him to sit down. Now, more comfortable, Roland asks her to answer his question. The woman reveals that since she arrived in the village, she has been by his side and has seen everything he's done, and yes, she's quite the stalker. But, well, in response, the protagonist asks why she's showing herself now. Nightingale mentions that she just saw his maid serve him wine, but there was something peculiar about it. The cup had something added. Upon hearing this, Roland asks if she means to say Tyrion poisoned the wine. However, Nightingale replies that it seems his harem isn't entirely safe. Roland immediately clarifies that misunderstanding, but changing the subject, he thanks her for saving him. Nightingale tells him it's nothing. After all, it's her way of repaying him for saving Anna. Saying this, she gets up from the bed and, looking at our protagonist, tells him she will take Anna and Nanawa. Seeing his waifus being taken, the protagonist asks where to which Nightingale replies to the Sisterhood of Witches, a place where witches are neither discriminated against nor persecuted. Although, in my opinion, they're better off with our protagonist, and he knows it too, assuring her they'll be safe with him. The girl acknowledges she has no bad intentions, but tells him there's something she can't do, which is take them to the sacred mountain, where they will find eternal peace. To this, the protagonist mentions that his men found traces of witches in the northern forest, asking if they are also seeking the sacred mountain, to which Nightingale refuses to answer. And yes, that says a lot. In light of all this, Roland firmly tells her he won't allow Anna and Nanawa to leave, saying winter is coming and it's dangerous for them. He invites them to spend the winter here, offering shelter to the Sisterhood of Witches, and yes, this protagonist is great, I'd even say he's God. However, Nightingale tells him that even though His Highness isn't afraid of witches, there are too many people there, and if the church finds out, they won't let it slide, asking Roland why, if he's in such danger, he doesn't just let them go. To which our Roland God replies that they are important to him. Nightingale insists that he must take Anna, as she's in danger if she stays, because for witches, the night of coming of age is the great trial. Anna will awaken during the demon moon. That day, the gates of hell will open. Adulthood marks a before and after. Those who fail to awaken their power after 18 won't do so. On the other hand, those who succeed will suffer the pain of their magic every year on the same day of their awakening, a pain so intense it can kill them in a horrible way, turning them to smoke, leaving only a layer of charred skin. Otherwise, if they survive this, their bodies will recover in 4 or 5 days. Yes, it seems a witch's life is full of pain, not to mention they are being executed. She also mentions that many witches die in adulthood, and because of this trial, they are considered the embodiment of the demon. In the Sisterhood of Witches, they will know how to care for Anna and Nanawa. They will have a better chance of surviving, and the Sacred Mountain will offer them eternal peace. The masked woman tells the protagonist that they could be essential for his grand plans, but he should give them the chance to survive. Hearing this, Roland, somewhat sad, thinks it over and agrees to let Nightingale take them. And yes, who wouldn't want to stay with him? Ruiseñor decides to stay, saying she has experience and can help when the time comes. Otherwise, if she can't endure, Anna will face terrible consequences. The next day, Roland wakes up, and while his maids tidy his room, Carter enters. Roland asks what's wrong, and Carter reveals that Tyr died last night after falling from his balcony. Roland, as expected, laments the loss and orders a proper burial. Without saying more, he orders Carter to leave and wait in the hall. Just as Carter exits, Ruiseñor appears as if by magic. In that moment of silence, Roland asks if it was her. Ruiseñor confesses the truth but clarifies she didn't kill him. When she appeared, Tyr chose to poison herself with the venom in her tooth, making it look like an accident. Roland tells her that he heard his sister was kidnapped and sent to Metallo, assuming it was his brother's. Ruiseñor suggests he hurry to the meeting. Roland tries to refuse, but seeing he finished his breakfast, he has no choice but to attend. So we see him in front of Badop and Carter. The elder notices he's a bit distracted and asks if he's okay. Roland reassures him, saying he's just hungry, and orders the meeting to start. They explain that due to selling the mineral at half market price, they've only earned 200 gold dragons, but after expenses for the wall and supplies, they have just 90 coins left. Our albino thinks that's enough to last through winter, but Barov reminds him he also announced a militia. Regarding this, Roland asks Carter about the recruitment situation. Carter replies that there are many volunteers, enough to fill a unit of 100 men. However, training and leadership are a big problem, as they are just workers against demon beasts, so he suggests asking Baron Boris for knights. And yes, our protagonist isn't foolish either, so he agrees, asking Carter to arrange a meeting with Baron Boris for the next day. Roland talks privately with Barov, who doubts Boris will agree to help. However, Roland admits he doesn't expect it either. They only agreed to meet because Carter trusts him. Still, he acknowledges that Carter is right about the military. While playing chess, Barov thinks he'll lose due to lack of pieces, but Roland explains that pawns, the simplest ones, can lead to victory. He compares this to reality, trusting that the people will fight to the end, even without experience. Still, he assures that he will train them and they won't fight unarmed. Yes, a true leader. Then we see Roland teaching Anna to focus her fire magic on a precise point. After much effort, she succeeds, even changing the color of the flames, but ends up exhausted. The protagonist congratulates her and hints that what they're creating will be a weapon that marks a new era. Later, Ruiseñor appears in his room, promising to protect both Anna and Roland. As a reward, she shows the scroll Anna gave her, wanting to take it to the witches' sisterhood. The protagonist allows it without issue, showing the trust between them. The next day, the protagonist and Carter visit Baron Boris to request military support. While the Baron acknowledges their bravery, he refuses to help, claiming his knights are exhausted and he won't risk them against demon beasts. Instead, he offers money as a gesture of support. This infuriates Carter, who sees it as a lack of honor. However, the protagonist, calm, says he expected this, decides to accept the money, use it strategically, and assume they can't rely on the nobility. When Carter asks how they'll train without them, the protagonist confidently replies that he has his own methods. At the camp, he finds some friends, surprised they came. They both came for the tempting job offer, as they'll only be running errands on horseback, avoiding fights, and he asks Nirvana what will happen to the girl from the bar, Sherry, if he dies. He swears he won't die and will propose when he returns, plus he came to earn money for the wedding. Right there on the platform, they make everyone pay attention because Roland has just arrived. Yes, our protagonist is too important. As he rises, he thanks everyone who stepped up to defend their homes, calling them the Frontier Militia. Over the month, they'll be trained and rewarded if they succeed. The big reward is an extra egg at breakfast. This simple gesture motivates everyone, and Roland introduces the captain. As some may know, he is Steelaxe, the best hunter. Roland promises anyone who stands out in training or fights bravely will be promoted, regardless of their background. Now, Steelaxe takes the floor. The first training will be to hold a firm stance like him for half an hour, and those who do will get their extra egg. Everyone reacts excitedly, and Steelaxe has them puff out their chests and hold their heads high, with firm glutes and tight abs. Maintaining this stance turns out to be much harder, especially with the sun beating down on them. Still, Bana is motivated to earn that egg. We see Steelaxe sweating too until he orders them to relax, and everyone collapses from exhaustion. No one imagined standing could be so tiring, but at least everyone will get an egg, commenting that they hadn't eaten one in a year. Steel Axe informs Carter that everyone passed the first round, and at that moment, Roland calls Carter. Everyone watches, worried, wondering if there will be no egg. Bana trusts the prince's word, but for his friends, a noble's word means nothing. They wonder why he chose Steel Axe, a man from the desert, as captain, since nobles value lineage highly. Vanna mentions that Steel Axe is not a bad guy and is the most skilled hunter around. Plus, the desert people have better physiques. They see Carter finishing his talk with Roland, and everyone stands up because, yes, they need to be strict. He informs them on Roland's behalf that everyone will receive an extra egg for their hard work and explains the next round. They must hold the stance for an hour. If they succeed, they'll get another egg. The young recruits get excited hearing this, but Carter adds that if even one person can't hold on, they won't pass the training, and no one will get a second egg. This worries the young recruits. One of them asks Vanna if he thinks he can hold out. The last one, swallowing hard, confidently exclaims that for 2 eggs, he'll do anything. Yes, a bit over the top. With that said, Carter returns to Roland. Our protagonist notices Carter wants to say something, so he encourages him to speak. Carter clarifies he doesn't want to contradict him, but doubts those people can do it alone, as he's almost sure they'll be the first to flee from battle. And frankly, he doesn't see the point of this training, doubting they can defeat the beasts by just standing. In response, Roland asks if with his method they could turn them into good warriors in 2 months. Carter replies no, at least it would take 5 years. Roland explains that's why he's not training them to be warriors or knights, as he knows it's impossible to achieve in 2 months. However, he assures him that they'll see results soon. He also mentions that both Steel Axe and the witches belong to the frontier people, so there's no issue. He prefers that instead of worrying about that, Carter focuses on the plan they will follow. Carter looks at the content, then confused, asks why he's so determined to teach them to read and write. The protagonist replies that it's enough for them to learn commands, so he'll talk to Cal personally. Carter tells him that won't help in battle. Roland makes it clear that a good army is made up of well-educated people, something history proves with facts. Later, at lunchtime, the recruits enjoyed their meal with tears. Then Carter appears and approaches Steel Axe to inform him that the afternoon training will last until sunset, aiming to run 3 laps around the village. If they all succeed, they'll get another egg at dinner. With that said, he leaves and we see all the recruits running as fast as they can while Steel Axe explains the rules. We see Bana once again lagging behind, unable to go on. He falls to the ground. He tries to get up but can't hold back the urge to vomit. Still, he swallows it down and collapses. Sweaty, he wonders if the others have already made it, and when he looks up, he sees no one. Suddenly, his vision blurs and all he can think about is getting up to earn the egg until he hears someone shout his name. This is how we arrive at the camp. Carter asks H of Steel if everyone made it. He looks around, but then another guard arrives and, after counting, reports that 3 are missing. H of Steel was already disappointed until someone announces they see them arriving. Everyone stands up and H of Steel runs to meet them. From afar, everyone cheers for the 3 friends, and we see Vanna smiling proudly for making it. Hacha and a few others run to greet them, informing Carter that everyone has arrived. The blonde declares the training complete, and that night everyone celebrates around a campfire. Carter goes to H of Steel, toasting to the success of the training, and also mentions they'll train again tonight, though some feel they'll fall asleep in a blink, to which Carter says they'll practice emergency formation. Now we switch to Roland, who goes to his office and finds Reason at the table. She points out that he's been working all day and is still busy, plus he ate her bacon so it wouldn't get cold. Roland brushes it off, reprimanding her for her lack of manners towards a prince since she used to be more respectful. Ruiseñor stands up from the table and bows as an apology, mentioning that they prepared food for 2. The protagonist just smiles, implying 1 plate was for her. As she watches him work, she comments that she heard he covers the militia's expenses and wants them to learn to read and write, which nobles would see as a waste. However, the protagonist sees it as a good investment. This way they'll understand why they fight and it will benefit them in the future. Right now, they fight to eat, and that's why he tries to make them understand the real reasons behind their struggles, which makes a lot of sense. He then asks Ruiseñor what the Brotherhood fights for. She replies that they are just a few women who come together to survive, and making it happen is already hard for her, so she doesn't question anything. We see Roland working until dawn, and without realizing it, Ruiseñor has already left, so he gets up and takes out the object he brought last night, which is a rifle. Immediately, he goes to Carter and H of Steel to test his creation. The protagonist presents it as a weapon capable of killing enemies from a distance. Carter inspects the weapon, asking if it's like a crossbow. The protagonist replies that it's slower, but much more lethal. He offers to teach them how to use it. First, they take some of the dark material called gunpowder, pour it into the pan, and then seal it. Next, they add the bullet and compact it with the ramrod. After this, he instructs them to aim the weapon at the target with the stock against their shoulder, signaling them to fire. The 2 shots send the armor flying, leaving both of them stunned. After this, Carter asks how many weapons they've made. The protagonist replies that for now they only have 2, but by the Demon Moon they'll have 2 more, which discourages Carter a bit. The protagonist notices this and tells him that while it's a powerful weapon, he can't let just anyone have it, so he gives it to them to protect the townspeople. In response, they both kneel, promising to meet his expectations. Meanwhile, at the Canto Largo fortress, the Lord of the Land is training with a bow. Boris, who is with him, informs him about everything he discussed with Roland, confirming that the wall they are building is almost finished. He also mentions that, after investigating, he found out that Roland hired a group of militiamen. Laughing, he says they're being fed eggs, which catches the Lord's attention, who asks if they have eggs. Boris replies that they do, explaining that the protagonist bought supplies from Saucetown, but reassures him that they shouldn't worry, as when winter comes, that kid will come begging to let them stay. The Lord silences him, making it clear that even if he has a useless army and limited supplies, he won't give them the slightest chance. But well, if you've made it this far, say the word wall to let me know you reached the end. Here on screen, I'll leave you these 2 cool videos just like the person watching this video. See you next time, take care, drink water, shower, and bye-bye.